Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm sure you're all aware of what's been going on in Russia for the last several hours with a sort of uprising by the Wagner group in Rostov. It's too early to say really what are the objectives and the motives, the reasoning, the rationale for what Prigozhin is doing. He says that it's basically because his troops were attacked by the Russian army, and that he's accusing the Russian military officials of being sort of corrupt and weak and not giving the support that he needs in Ukraine and blah, blah, blah. Others are saying that it's a coup attempt. So it's hard to say exactly what's going on. My opinion is this is basically Prigozhin is Luca Brasi to Putin's Vito Corleone. And this is what it would look like if Luca Brasi decided that he wanted to be a head of the family. You're a henchman, and you decided that you wanted to be a Don. Okay. But this is always going to be the danger. And this is why states have historically insisted upon holding the monopoly on violence. Because if you privatize, which is what is happening now, and this is what Russia has done, and they're not the only ones, when you privatize and divide that monopoly and allow private sector organized violence, you erode state authority. And I think this is a trend that we're going to be seeing more and more in the future. Private military contractors, private military companies, mercenaries, are not working for the state. They're not working for the nation. They're not working for the population. They're not committed to the mission of the state or the official goals of the state, the public welfare, the best interest of the nation, and so on. They're working for money. So this is a very dangerous thing for a state. But it, to me, signals the general erosion of state power and state authority that we're seeing as a result of neoliberalism. Everything is privatized. All state functions are privatized. And that includes now also violence and military capacity in combat. It's all privatized. Private armies can now be recruited by corporations, by the rich, by private sector power to secure and protect and enforce their interests, literally through violence, like full-blown neo-feudalism. And any state that partners with these types of organizations is doing so at their own risk. We've seen it with the RSF in Sudan. You create a paramilitary group that isn't actually part of the regular army, and they're loyal to their leader. They're not loyal to you. They're not loyal to the state. They're not loyal to the government. They're not loyal to the president. They're loyal to their leader and who signs their checks. So now you have a potential internal enemy or competitor for authority that is often more ruthless and brutal than you are, or than you're allowed to be, because you are, and your army is, your military is, subject to certain protocols, subject to certain treaties and the law. Private military companies are not. They can do what they want. And this is what you're seeing now with this Prigozhin in Rostov, in Russia. He decided that he didn't like the way the government was doing things. He decided that he didn't like the way the military of defense was running things. And so he wanted it to be different, and he just came in and seized the building. You gave them this power. You are relying on them. And they're not loyal to you. They're loyal to whoever signs their checks. They're loyal to whoever is paying them. They don't have an ideology. They're not nationalistic, which makes them the perfect military force to be relied upon by a national, non-nationalistic, non-ideological private sector power. So the owners and controllers of global financialized capital are very likely to accelerate, to increase the usage of and the presence of private military contractors and the state armies. As we've seen all around the world, generally, especially in the West, national armies are in decline in terms of their recruitment, in terms of their numbers, whereas private military companies are on the rise. Now, what's going to happen in Russia? Allahu Alam, it's hard to say. obviously Prigozhin is going to have to die. I mean, there's not really another way for that to go forward for him. His career and his life is most likely over. This is an act of treason. But the question is, what is going to be the relationship now between Wagner and the Kremlin? Because if you arrest, prosecute, and execute Prigozhin, what happens to Wagner? Are they going to be disbanded? His members are still loyal to him, presumably. So are they now going to become a threat and a danger to Russia? This will severely decrease Russia's combat capacity, not just in Ukraine, but around the world, because they're using Wagner all over the world. So if they can't use Wagner anymore, this is going to be a severe blow to Russia's military power of enforcing through violence, securing and protecting and enforcing their interests globally. So what's going to happen now? That's a question. It's an open question. But the fate of Prigozhin should more or less be sealed at this point. I don't see, him putting out a statement that he's doing it for allegedly sort of patriotic reasons, in that his military campaign his efforts in Ukraine are being undermined by the military of defense. I mean, there's never been a coup in history that wasn't undertaken for allegedly patriotic reasons. Again, I don't think it's really a coup, but either way, this is a challenge to the state power of Russia, the state power and the power of Putin, and the authority of Putin. So obviously something has to be done about Prigozhin. But the question is now, what's going to go going forward? What's going to be the relationship between Moscow and Wagner? Are they going to disband Wagner? And what are you going to do now about the usage of private military companies now that you see the danger that they pose? Well, I don't think there's anything you can do about it. I think this is irreversible, this trend of using private military companies. And what it means is that ultimately, the fate of state power is sealed. Jazakumullahu khairan wa assalamu alaikum.